Great. Well, welcome everybody.
Great.
I just want to do some housekeeping items before we start the presentation. So thanks for everybody for joining us today. The participants have been muted, so we ask that any questions or comments that you would like to provide, please direct those into the Q&A pod. Make sure you're using the correct one, the Q&A, and not the chat. The chat has been disabled. This presentation is going to be recorded and posted to the Region 4 website, I believe, Cindy, along with a copy of the slides. And with that, we will go ahead and get started.
All right, Jeannie. Thanks, Channing. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me okay, and I will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here today. It's been
I think she cut out. I don't.
Yep.
Can anybody hear
I think
Jeannie?
she did too.
Oh no.
Yeah. All right. She may have lost her connection because she's on the road. So let me jump in and do a couple of introductory comments. Overall, our objective today is to share with you some of the Brownfield programs with a particular focus on the job training grants, a powerful tool. This presentation is being offered only to HBCUs today and to minority serving institutions. We recognize the value that you have in working closely with your communities, and we think that this opportunity is a growth opportunity for you to consider for your future community work and even for some of your graduates. But we also figured that because in Region 4, which is the 8 Southeast states, we have more HBCUs and minority serving institutions. We've actually developed other programs which are inclined to support minority communities. So we wanted to go over some of those programs with you so that you're aware of all the tools that we have in our toolbox, and you are welcome to pursue any of those with any of the speakers. So the first program that we wanted to introduce you to was our CUPP program. It's the College and Underserved Community Partnership Program. Then we're going to go over the Brownfields grants in general with a focus on the job training. And then we're going to talk about the environmental justice grant opportunities that are coming up. We want you to be aware of. So Jeannie Williamson, who electronically got cut off, is our CUPP program coordinator. And she works with individual universities to set up these partnership programs between students and communities that have needs. Next slide, please. I'm sure she could do a much better job at this than I can. We started this program uniquely in Region 4 in 2011. And we work very closely, Tennessee Department of Environment works very closely with us. Other states do as well, but they have their own CUPP program. It's been so successful for us. They watched and they learned and they set up their own. This program is run out of our regional administrator's office, and it is aligned with our environmental justice program, our international program, our National Environmental Policy Act, and our Smart Sectors Initiative work. Next slide, please. The types of community engagement that this program works with is really connecting students who are studying in a particular area with real world experiences in communities that have those needs. We find that this is a win-win situation, and communities contact us all the time and say we can use help in any sort of environmental areas. It's air and water and land and landfills and all the problems that communities have. And we have students at universities doing amazing work, usually as a capstone project or even just a summer project. It can be tooled to whatever the student needs or whatever the time frame is. Sometimes we have projects where a student starts, but they complete, another student picks it up, and the community ends up with a final product after working with a couple of different students. And that works just as well. Next slide, please.
Hey, Cindy, I can take over now.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Jeannie.
Sorry.
Happy to have you jump in.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
So for community engagement, you can go on to the next slide. And as Cindy was saying, we do have engagements with our colleges and universities. We engage with them after we've developed a scope, a really clear plan for the students to engage with that community. So we find the best fit for the community as far as expertise for the students. And we also are able to assist with capacity building in that area. So, you know, this is not only a win for the community, but it's also a win for the students and the school. The school, they can actually work with the community as well and create partnerships with the community. And the students also get school credit and volunteer hours. So we can go on to the next slide. So for this year, we had a couple of main goals that we want to accomplish, and it fits really well with the Brownfields program and the job training program that Cindy had introduced earlier today in the flyer that you saw attached to the announcement. We want to make sure that we engage with HBCUs and MSIs in our region in the Southeast. So this engagement is really important. We want to provide recruitment, research opportunities, grants, and contract opportunities to these MSIs and HBCUs. So we document a lot of our partnerships through MOUs, but is not required to be a part of this grant or to be a part of the CUPP program. We also want to establish opportunities for students to participate in grant research and grant writing within the communities, and we're hoping that HBCUs and MSIs can support these students in this activity. We want to celebrate our students by providing them a national platform for their projects. So this past year, we were able to honor a lot of good student projects and have them present at the Environmental Justice National Conference in Washington, D.C. And everybody loved the projects that they completed with their communities. Next slide. So we do have those MOUs that I was talking about, although it's not required to participate in the CUPP program. And it's not required to participate in any type of grant or partnership within EPA. We are a leader in this area in Region 4. We have several MOUs that have been put in place by our academic advisor in the past, and we're renewing those partnerships actively right now and then in the coming years. As you can notice right here, we have 19 HBCU MOUs currently, and we'd like to renew those with all of our schools. We have about 60% of the HBCUs and MSIs within Region 4. Well, actually HBCUs, the MSIs, we have about 20%. So we definitely have a lot of opportunities for HBCUs and MSIs in our region. Next slide. And just to give you a few program statistics and how this fits so well with the Brownfields program and with EJ, we have a lot of facilitated partnership projects that have been completed, over 100. And we have over 100 community, college, and university partnerships that we have that we've completed these projects with. And all this valuable technical expertise and the capacity building that these students have provided is valued at more than $45 million. And CUPP currently has about 20 to 25 projects in place right now. And then at the bottom of the slide, you can see that there is a website address that's housed on the EJ National Program site. So feel free to reach out to our program and contact me directly if you'd like to be involved in our community engagement projects. We would love to have additional partnerships with HBCUs and MSIs. Next slide, please. And this is actually my contact information. You have it already on all of your invites, but feel free to reach out at any point in time. I think Olga Perry is up next to talk about the job training grants and other Brownfields grants. Olga?
So we actually received some questions
Oh, yes.
for you. So the first one, we are an HBCU and a community college. If you can address how you can work with our freshmen and sophomore students and vocational students, that would be helpful.
We may have lost the connection with Jeannie again. I'm going to suggest that people contact Jeannie directly and talk about your specific circumstance. There is room to customize this program for any type of student in any scenario. And the next speaker is Channing about our job training program. All right, Channing.
Yes, so I am going to be talking about our Brownfields job training program. But before we get started, for folks that are not aware of what a brownfield is, a brownfield is a property where the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant may complicate that property's expansion, redevelopment, and or reuse. So if you might think of things like an abandoned gas station, old rundown buildings, mills, former manufacturing facilities, things like that. The definition is very broad, so it is likely that most communities could identify a property that would be considered a brownfield. And so what is the Brownfield Job Training Program? The Brownfield Job Training Program is designed to add an environmental remediation component to a job training program to recruit and train unemployed and underemployed residents from communities that are impacted by the presence of brownfields, whether that be wasted facilities, blighted properties, or contaminated sites, and place them in environmental jobs that may have otherwise been filled from workers outside the affected community. This program is intended to further environmental justice by ensuring that residents living in areas historically affected by economic disinvestment, health disparities, and environmental contamination have an opportunity to actually reap the full benefit of the revitalization and environmental cleanup that is happening in their communities. And ultimately, we want to help individuals develop the skills and knowledge necessary to obtain employment. And so by going through a job training program and earning certification, graduates improve their marketability to employers and ensure that employment opportunities are not just temporary contract work, but full-time sustainable employment in the environmental field, which includes brownfield assessment and cleanup activities. And along with setting up graduates, along with setting up graduates with success for their future, these jobs are also reducing environmental contamination and helping to build more sustainable futures for communities. And so there are a few requirements for a brownfield job training grant and to receive a grant. The major requirements of this program is you must target unemployed and underemployed individuals that are residents living in or near an area that is adversely impacted by the presence of brownfields or other EPA funded projects. You must be an eligible entity, which could include a city, county, state, tribe, a workforce investment board, nonprofit, or a college/university. You must provide OSHA 40-hour HAZWOPER, that's the Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response Training, to all students in your program. And you must meet all threshold eligibility requirements that are outlined in the RFA, also known as the request for applications, or sometimes also known as the guidelines. And so under this funding opportunity, to create this program, applicants can apply for up to $500,000 to develop their curriculum. And the project period for this grant is 5 years. The first 2 years, you're looking at recruitment and screening and starting your training. Year 3 and 4, you're going to continue recruitment and your screening. You're going to continue training, and you will also start concluding trainings of cohorts that started in the first 2 years. And then year 5, you're really looking at the placement and tracking of graduates and reporting these results to EPA. So Brownfield's hazardous waste training really includes training in the assessment, inventory, analysis, and remediation of sites or facilities at which hazardous substances, pollutants, contaminants, and petroleum products are located, transported, or disposed of. This can also include training in the use of techniques and methods for cleaning up hazardous substance, petroleum, pollutants, such as asbestos abatement or lead abatement. In addition to this training, grant recipients may use funds also for training in green remediation technologies, stormwater management training, emergency response training, enhanced environmental health and safety related to site remediation, and energy efficiency and alternative energy technologies. Things that this grant funding cannot pay for are training in general construction skills and trades, conducting actual site assessments or cleanups, general or life skills, and job readiness training. One of the things that I do want to note, though, is that we have a requirement that administrative costs for this grant are capped at 5%. So this includes all indirect and direct costs associated with the grant administration. And that is in excess of the 5%. So a complete application, what it looks like is your application will consist of the narrative information sheet, the narrative, the appropriate attachments, and the required forms. The narrative information sheet, which you are allotted a maximum of 3 pages, will contain requested information such as the applicant information, location, contacts of project director and chief executive, as well as the responses to the threshold eligibility criteria. Then the next section, the narrative, is really the bulk of your application, which you are allotted a maximum of 12 pages. And in this section, in the narrative, you're going to include responses to the 7 sections. And there you'll be talking about your community need, the training program description, the budget, the program structure, and anticipated outputs and outcomes of your program, any community and employer partnerships that you have built, any leveraging and outside resources, and lastly, the programmatic capability of your organization to successfully manage this program and grant. And this section is what will be evaluated by reviewers against the evaluation criteria listed in section 5A in the guidelines. So the evaluation criteria that the reviewers use to evaluate and score your application are provided. And then the last section, the attachments, that will include documentation of applicant eligibility, if applicable, a milestone schedule, documentation addressing other factors that are applicable, and partnership letters. And then you will also have the required forms, which are available in grants.gov when you are submitting your application. And those 4 things make up your complete application that you submit in grants.gov. All of this information, of course, is explained in our guidelines. So just some tips on how to apply. Really familiarize yourself with the guidelines. Like I said, we provide a lot of information. Part of the guidelines explain, how to or what things to focus on in your narrative for each section that I mentioned earlier. We also provide the evaluation criteria that are used. So the guidelines really will be your best friend when you're writing these applications. And just begin compiling and organizing the required documentation for your application package as soon as possible. Some things that you also might want to take into account too are, employer surveying and hiring commitments, especially when you're building up those partnerships with different organizations and employers in your community. Those can take time. So really start early. You might consider holding a public meeting or forming an advisory board. Those take time as well. The next tip is address all the criteria. Even if it does not apply to you, briefly explain why it doesn't. Don't just leave it blank. If you leave it blank, you probably will not earn the points for that section versus if you do provide, a response of why this doesn't apply to you. And then just make sure quality over quantity. Too much information is not necessarily a good thing. You want to make sure that your application is painting an overall picture of your job training program. But please remember, our reviewers will have to read these. And so make sure that the information you're providing is really relevant to your program. And do not include any photos or graphics. Successful applicants have a well thought out project and their application really tells a story. And they make sure that all their criteria is addressed. We do have a high success rate for this grant. So in our previous year's competition, about 89% of the eligible applicants did receive funding. And that really goes back to, I believe, familiarizing yourself with the guidelines because we do provide all the necessary information in the guidelines for you to be successful. I just want to highlight some job training resources that we have. So we have last year's guidelines, as well as frequently asked questions and a tip sheet on how to submit an application through grants.gov on this website. We are in the process of finalizing our FY23 guidelines and getting ready for the FY23 competition, which is why we are hosting this event. But we do have previous year's resources available for you just to familiarize yourself until the new grant guidelines become available. Also check out our Brownfields website just for general information. If you're curious to learn more about brownfield projects and other land revitalization information as well. We also have a technical assistance provider, HMTRI, as they're known for, which is the Hazardous Materials Training and Research Institute. And they have their Brownfields Toolbox website, which really is a great resource for new programs that are looking to sort of build up their job training program. And they offer technical assistance at no cost to you. And then two other resources are Olga Perry. She's the Region 4 Job Training Coordinator, and her contact information is listed there, as well as my contact information as well. And with that, I will see if we had any questions.
There was a hand raised, Channing.
A hand raised, okay. Let me go to the participants. Yes.
Hi, this is Joyce Scott. And the one question that I have, it might turn into two, but for right now it's one. Can you tell me when you expect that the notice of funding opportunity will actually come out?
So we are anticipating kind of a June, July timeframe.
Okay.
So relatively soon, sometime this summer. So I would definitely recommend checking our Brownfields website because that is where it will be posted as well. And if you are not a part of our listserv, I recommend joining that, which is also available on our Brownfields website, as we will send out a listserv, saying the guidelines are available now.
Thank you. And one additional question.
Yeah.
Will we have copies, access to copies of this presentation?
Yes. So
Okay.
this presentation or this webinar is being recorded, and Region 4 is going to post the recording as well as a copy of the slides.
Okay, very well. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes. And it looks like Dr. King has his hand raised, sorry.
Can you answer it, Channing? He's asking for the specific link to the grant.
Where are you seeing this?
At the bottom of the Q&A boxes.
Okay. The specific link to the grant. I'm not sure what is meant by that. If you're talking about the posting in grants.gov, where you can click on it and where you'll submit your application, that will be posted on our website, as well as in the listserv. And you can always just go on to grants.gov and search by the the opportunity number that is stated in the guidelines.
So the suggestion we make in the interim is that you go to the link for EPA.gov Brownfields, where you can search all of our grant programs, including job training, and take a look at last year's guidelines, because this year's guidelines are not posted yet. They won't be posted till June or July, when that FY 22-23 solicitation is open. So look at last year's, and you can begin to see what this year's is going to look like. They're going to look very similar. We do tweak them a little bit from year to year, but they'll look very similar.
Correct, yeah. And it looks like Dr. Berkeley King, you have your hand up. I unmuted you, so if you want to ask your question.
Dr. King, you wish to ask a question? Okay.
All right.
Let's move
Well,
on.
we will move on then. So I will turn it over to Olga, who will talk about some of our other programs that we have in Brownfields.
Channing, I see that
Hello, everyone.
12, there's 12 questions in the Q&A right now.
Yes, I see. Let's see. Oh, can HBCUs partner with each other? Yes, I believe so. The specific name of this grant to pull all materials and information. So this specific grant is called the Brownfields Job Training Program. And that looks like all of the questions we have. Everything else is answered, yeah.
Okay, Olga.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Again, this is Olga Perry. I'm the Region 4 Brownfield Coordinator. And my portion is to talk a little bit about our Brownfield program. You see on the screen, it says hard button competition. All of our competitions are extremely competitive, extremely. But let me just tell you what they are. We have an assessment grant program where you can get from 200 to up to 600K or 600,000. And I'll talk a little bit about that grant. You can also do cleanup grants where you can get up to 500K plus. We have a revolving loan fund grant program where you can get between $800 to $1 million in grant funding. Multiple multi-purpose grants, you can get up to $1 million, and job training grants where you can get up to 500,000. And let me say that's new this year. That's new. But you heard Shannon talk about that. But I just wanted to let you know that is new. In the past, you were only able to get up to 200,000. So we're very happy with the fact that we are now offering much more funding, and that way you can do more job training and get more people trained for the environmental sector. The easy button grants, well, they're not grants, as you see here, they're not grants. The easy portion is our technical brownfield assessment. So if you have a small site or a site that you just want to target a simple area, you can apply for this particular assistance. And we have this year, FY22, we'll have up to $3.9 million. So that's a lot of small assessment grants that we can provide. Again, this is not a competitive grant. So if you're working, if an eligible entity is looking again to assess a small portion of a property, this is a grant for you. So if you're a small town, if you are, again, they have to be an eligible entity. But if you're eligible, you can apply for this. We have a land revitalization technical assistant support assistance. You can get up to 550K in FY22. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, as well as the technical assistant brownfield grant, or TAB. Now, isn't that weird? We have a TBA and we have a TAB. So keep them separate. Okay. Under the assessment grant, we provide funds to carry out brownfield assessment activities, and it's the most popular of our grants. We give out more assessment grants than any other brownfield grant. This one, you can use it to do site inventory, phase 1s, phase 2s, which should be about 60% of your funding. So if you apply for this and you get those funds, we expect to see at least 60% of the funds used for phase 1 or phase 2. You can do supplemental assessments. Say you have lead or asbestos surveys that need to be done. These funds can be used for that. It can be used for community outreach. It can be used to plan for, say you've done an assessment, you've done a phase 1, you've done a phase 2, and now you think cleanup needs to be done. Well, this particular grant can be used to plan for that kind of activity. As you see here, it says analysis of brownfield cleanup alternatives. So this will give you the funding to plan for that cleanup activity. It also provides funding for site reuse, and nonprofits can apply for this grant. Now, it doesn't say, it's not highlighted, so it's not new, but I've been in this program since 2000, and it wasn't always that way. But now nonprofits can apply. So that means if your school is looking to apply for a brownfield grant, this is the opportunity. But when I say your school, you have to not have been the contributing factor to whatever the contamination is. And I'm going to talk a little bit about an example a couple slides over. for bill, it says bill funding, that's bipartisan infrastructure. Oh my goodness, what's the L?
Legislation.
Law, the bipartisan infrastructure law. Legislation, I'm sorry. This grants for higher, it provides the funding for up to 500K or 500,000. This, you remember I told you that previously 500,000 was new. Well, that's where it came from. It came from the bill grant funding. The next grant that I'd like to talk about is the cleanup grant. Again, this is up to 500,000. I'm sorry, I forget to say next slide, but it provides up to 500,000. Well, it says up to 500,000 to possible 1.5 million with limitations. There are limitations to this. You must own the site at the time of application. So if you have a site, say you have a building and you own the site or your foundation owns the site and you want to put in an application for a cleanup grant or at least, yeah, you have a site that you're looking at and you have to own it. You have to have the simple title to that particular property in order to apply for the cleanup grant. You can sample or you can look into hazardous substance or petroleum substance. You may apply for up to 3 properties. Nonprofits, again, can apply for this grant. There's a cost waiver. If you cannot afford the cost share that is required of this grant, you can ask for a waiver.
Did we lose Olga?
I think so. I don't hear her anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me end with the phase 2 analysis of cleanup alternatives must be completed. In order to apply for this particular cleanup grant, you have to have what I said previously, the APTA or the cleanup alternative must be complete, which again, our investment funding is meant for. Next slide, please. Okay, who can apply for Brownfield grants? Well, local governments, land clearance authority.
I think she's breaking up and we're losing her
Yeah, I
again.
think we lost her.
All right, so I'm going to step in. EPA grants are generally
Okay,
eligible.
go ahead.
You back?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Who can apply? Local governments, regional councils, nonprofits, states, tribes, and yes, even colleges. So please don't let the local governmental entity or any of those other entities make you not want to apply for a Brownfield grant, because you can receive one. Let me say something. Next slide, please. Okay. Under land revitalization, technical assistance, under this grant can help with economic analysis, green infrastructure, reuse assessment, site design, strategic action plans, and sustainable practices. Our Brownfields is set to help wherever you need help. Green infrastructure, oh my goodness, or reuse assessment. If you'll turn to the next slide, I'm going to show you where Stillman College, next, Next slide, Tanny. Okay, Stillman College applied for our grant, or at least the Brownfield grant. They did the competitive process, but were not successful. So what they did ask for, they came in and asked for our technical assistance. They're looking to use this funding so that they can work on dormitories, turn them into YMCA, a portion. Well, let me say this. They're looking at their William Hall and their King Hall, and they want to turn it into a YMCA. And they use our technical assistance funding for reuse assessment and site design, I believe, strategic planning, to help with assessing property, because they also applied for the TBA. I mean, they did a lot. They asked for a lot, they got a lot. So it doesn't mean everybody will be eligible to get the same kind of funding, but hey, we'll apply and see what we can do for you, or what Brownfields can help you accomplish. And I think that's all of my slides. Are there questions or concerns?
I don't see any.
I can't see questions. Oh.
Yeah,
There was one question about private universities. And I wrote back and said that private university is not eligible by itself. However, most private universities also have a nonprofit arm. That nonprofit arm is eligible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's what Stillman did. They allowed their trust, their foundation, to apply for activities regarding this site, regarding William and King Hall. Any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like somebody has their hand up. Joyce.
I think she just didn't take her hand down from before.
Okay.
Go to the next slide.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Olga.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we're going to talk about our environmental justice program and the grant opportunities available through that program. Daphne, is that you?
Okay, I guess I'll go, and
Okay.
Daphne's going to do the next couple of slides after me. So we have about 3 grant programs that we're going to share with you. The first 3 EJ Small Grants, Collaborative Problem Solving Grants, and the State Environmental Justice Cooperative Agreement. We'll talk in detail about those, but the remaining 3, and I believe Olga may have already talked about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, but we're just going to share a little bit more details about those and how you should be on the lookout for those within your respective universities. Okay, next slide. Okay, we're just having some time with technical difficulties today. So is Daphne on? If not, I'll just do it.
Yeah, I am
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So the first grant opportunity that we offer in the environmental justice and children's health section is the EJ Small Grant. The EJ Small Grants are 1-year grants, and right now they're $75,000, which when I started coordinating this program, they were only $25,000. And to be totally honest, right before COVID, our last grant cycle, those grants were only $30,000. So with the money that is flowing in from this administration, a lot of grants have improved in their amounts and in the numbers of grants that we've been able to award. And a lot of that is due to the American Rescue Plan and the bill dollars that support funding for these projects.
Hey, Daphne, can I add?
Mm-hmm.
You all may be disappointed because this is small in comparison to what Channing and Olga just finished talking about. But these are very powerful grants that can be leveraged with Brownfields funding, with other funding. And we've seen particularly organizations that have not received federal grants prior to maybe applying for this one. This is a great one to start, to kind of cut your teeth on, I guess, if you will, if you don't have experience with managing federal funding.
Another thing that we can point out about these grants in comparison to the Brownfields grants is that these are competitive, but not nearly as competitive as the Brownfield grants and the assessment grants and cleanup grants. So these grants, in comparison to those grant programs, are a lot easier to accomplish. The other one is the Collaborative Problem Solving Grant, and that addresses environmental and public health issues that affect the community, but the requirement for this grant is that the grant recipient form collaborative partnerships with other stakeholders, and they work together to implement a solution to an environmental and public health problem. So these grants are 2-year grants, and they're $200,000. Next slide. Okay, we also have the state cooperative agreements. These are environmental justice state cooperative agreements, and these are offered to states, locals, and tribal governments to support activities that lead to improving environmental and public health. These are also 2-year grants, and they are $200,000. What I'd like to say is, if you are not eligible to apply for a specific grant, one of these grants, you are more than welcome to form a partnership with an eligible applicant and let the applicant apply, and you work with them as a partner and still be able to accomplish your goal. Next slide.
Okay, so this next to last slide, I believe, is just some information on 3 programs that have come from Biden's administration. And these programs, you can't really, or the first 2 anyway, the American Rescue Plan and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, known as Bill, you can't apply directly for those because they are going to your states, like I guess the governor's office. So we are recommending that you need to get with your legislatures, go through the state office and express your interest in receiving the funds that have come from Congress for whatever activity that you may have in mind. Now, some of the grant programs that we've already mentioned, like the EJ grants, like I think probably some of the Brownfields grants, are recipients of funding coming from the American Rescue Plan, from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill. So this funding has gone into, that's why we're able to give out $75,000 now, as opposed to $30,000, which we were awarding prior to COVID. But all of the funding it's not going to those grant programs. They have gone directly to states for supporting projects related to air quality monitoring. That's for American Rescue Plan. And for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, those projects are for upgrading outdated drinking water and wastewater systems, road, bridges, transit systems, things like that. So it will behoove you to find out where those monies are going within your respective state. And hopefully, if you have some projects in mind, or if you have some systems that need to be upgraded, some things that need to be addressed, that you can have those discussions with your local legislatures to direct them to your respective communities. You gonna say something, Daphne?
Well, I was just gonna go and say a little bit something about the Justice 40 initiative.
Okay.
Okay, so with the Justice 40 initiative, it is a commitment to assure that 40% of all the financial investments go into disadvantaged communities. And so those communities would be communities like yours that typical for an HBCU or a minority serving institution are usually located in those types of communities. So I would say and encourage you to seek out grant opportunities and apply. And when there is not a competition active, that is the best time to reach out to me or someone in the Brownfields area, or even Jeannie, to talk about ideas for grants, or whether or not you could apply, or who you can partner with and take advantage of these resources.
Yeah, so I was also going to add, following up to what Daphne just said, for our grants, we are just in the process of awarding all 3 programs, actually, hopefully by the end of this month, early next month. So our solicitation period has closed. We don't know when the next one is going to open, maybe in the next 6 months to a year, I guess, thereabouts. So use this time to prepare, and use this time to reach out to program managers like Daphne and others, so she can perhaps provide you some guidance on your project idea. She can't review your application, even when the solicitation isn't open, but she can kind of respond to some questions that you may have. So again, we are not aware in recent history of receiving applications from HBCUs, at least for our grant programs. So for whatever reason, we don't really know why, but we hope that that will change. And we really are encouraging you all to take the time, read our past announcements, just like Brownfields. Go online, epa.gov/environmental justice, I think. And then you can search on EJ grants, but find some past solicitations and become familiar with the requirements, and ready yourself to apply when that next application period opens. Make sure that you apply for the technical assistance calls that we usually offer. We usually have 3 to 4 per grant cycle. And that's the time when you can join in, ask more questions than what Daphne may be able to answer, to help you with your application, to make sure that your application is as competitive as possible. And this slide is just a list of some other resources that you may want to take a look at that will help strengthen your application when you get ready to apply. We did not put our contact info on a slide, so I guess we can share it with you in the chat, because this is our last slide, Jenny.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
If there's any questions.
Yes, there is one. Would private universities qualify to apply for the EJ grants?
Yeah, like what Daphne said, you have to be a nonprofit. So I think it's the same as what Cindy may have said, if there's a nonprofit arm at your institution, then you can go through that nonprofit arm, or you can partner with the organization that is eligible if by chance you're not.
All right, thank you. Cheryl and Daphne.
And everyone. So I just wanted to put this out there. I'll be glad to send out some communications with Cheryl and Daphne's contact information and all the presenters with the link to the video, to the recorded presentation, so that everybody will have all this great information and have the right contact information. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeannie. So Jeannie will follow up with all those invited and ensure they have the link to the presentations, to this presentation, and the emails for all the speakers today. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to remind you that EPA is an incredibly accessible organization with people who respond to emails and to calls. And we're prepared to help you understand any one of these programs at greater depth and how we can help your community and your city and your college and university. And we'll wrap it up now. If there are no other questions, thanks again for joining us.
We have one more question.
Oh, go
that just
ahead.
came in. Is the main difference between EJ small grants and the collab problem solving grants how much data we have already, i.e. more definitive data present is for collaborative category?
I'm not sure if I understand that. Oh, go ahead, Daphne.
Yeah, no, the difference in the EJ small grants and the collaborative problem solving grant is pretty much the purpose. So the EJ small grant is less money, of course, and it's a shorter term, but it is for communities that are working on solutions for their environmental and public health issues, and to work towards coming up with a solution for that. So that organization could do it alone, you know, like an example is if you want to educate community members about some environmental issue in the community, or if you wanted to do some sort of training on water quality or something like that, you could do that as a nonprofit organization. And that would be an EJ small grant. For the collaborative problem solving grant, it is for 2 years. It's a bigger, I guess more is required. It's more detailed, and you have to collaborate with other stakeholders. So you have to bring a number of people on board to help you accomplish this larger goal. And EJ small grants have been done, you know, some of the projects have been even, you know, starting a community garden or, you know, something like that. But so that's the main difference, the amount and what is required. You have to, you know, one, you have to collaborate with other stakeholders, and the other one you don't.
Hey, Channing, before we close out, do you think I could answer the 3 questions that were posed for CUPP so that they would be recorded as well? I'll do it quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Can you read them for me? Because I can't see them.
Yeah, so one of them was, would it be possible to share a copy of the standard MOUs?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Would it be possible to share a copy of the standard MOUs?
The standard?
Yes. That's what
MOUs. Oh, yes. Yes, I can. I'll be glad to do that. We have a template that was approved by headquarters. I'll be glad to share that out with everybody. And the feedback that I I'll touch base with everybody with the link and the contact information, and I'll include the template that was approved by EPA as well. Yes.
Okay, and that was the only question.
There was another question that had something to do with freshmen and sophomore and how they could engage with communities as well, and how they
Yes.
could engage with CUPP. And really, you know, the age of the student at the university really doesn't factor in, is the ability to be able to engage with community members, the state, local officials, community members that are providing feedback for them. So you know, we would love to have freshmen and sophomore students engaged, because this really gets them into the avenue of engaging with communities and working with communities, and hopefully they'll do it for a lifetime. So yeah, hope that answers the questions.
Yes, and that was all the questions.
All right, thanks, Channing. And thanks to everybody that attended today. I will follow up with everybody in an email, and we really appreciate everybody attending and going through all of this information. And so sorry about the technical difficulties, but I think this is great information. Please feel free to pass it along to other HBCUs and MSIs within your network group. And hopefully we'll get some really great grant applicants coming up this summer and then into the fall.
Thank you all. I think we're done. Channing, if you want to stop the recording.